When I was growing up in Trinidad, there was this poet, this legendary mystical poet called Lennox Raphael, who lived in Port of Spain. I never got to meet him, but years later, when I first moved to London, I went to the poetry library and I found some of his work, and it kind of blew my head off. And he passed away earlier this week, so it's been that kind of week. We've lost Lennox Raphael earlier this week, probably Monday, I think it was, and we lost Benjamin Zephaniah yesterday, early hours of yesterday. So I want to dedicate my reading to them both, Lennox Raphael and Benjamin Zephaniah. This is a poem called On the Move. This is a poem, actually, I do music, and a few years ago I was recording an album in Trinidad with my band, and my MD gave me this bit of music that sounded like, I don't know, man, like Frank Zappa after he'd smoked a big spliff or something like that. It was really, really angular piece of music, and I had to really think on my feet and compose something to it. So this is what came out of it. On the Move. It was raining like a verb, like a bone. It was July, hard road, maybe Marseille, up the mountain, acrobatic. It was skin, it was hid. Back home, it was written, Port of Spain. We walked along, heavy light, copper septic, heavy rain. What was that? That was thunder, wind that blew us out of sync, scenic time. It was odd, a kind of shrimp, Caribbean. It was pulled back to reveal it. It was London. We were sailing, we kept on it. It was midnight, we were moving, Purple River, insect bone. It was a lie. No, it wasn't. It was the truth. Maybe more like a long con, like love as an anchor pulls us under. It was repeated like a chant, like a hymn, like a dirge, like a bell. It was gravel, rugged pitch, a blow that left her, wound in water, wild fever, fever grass. It was patchouli, orange blossom. It was something like madness. It was painted with desire, Baptist beat, so elastic, glossolalia, spirit talking. Once, when freedom had meaning, like organs of heat in the evening, my body held vibrations of the Caribbean, and we let bled that excess negritude of being. But the past didn't last long. It grew tired, and we wept in forest where black myth was painted in that acrobatic silence. And now my soul still holds the aroma of anguish. Do not gaze not too long upon the past. It's so dissonant, bass notes, sky church, steady dying. We were waiting to burst out of human life into brightness, heading east to the ocean. Too shallow, too drowning, rugged steep. We were coming back from drowning. Manzanilla, old plantation. History was all around us. It was fluid, rhythm motion on the move. So shallow is this memory that it pierced me like Chiwakahuan arrowhead, drowned it in double-beaten goatskin drums from gust and plywood junctions, where bliss throat sparkles there. Like sea silt in jettyfish near Port Authority, where cruise ships landed onto this dreamscape, contemplating the road. Our verge of memory split with cane like Camboulay in a place where everything happens at once. Thank you. All right. Language. The epigram is from Amiri Baraka, who says, to name something is to wait for it in a place you think it will pass. Something about how we have names for everything. How each leaf has its place at the shaded side of the river. The dark dirt under the cocoa onion has a name for that kind of soil. The soft cup of scales forming the echeveria has a name, the way it folds, the filament in the light of the firefly. The wick, the tail has a name. Luciferin in the production of light. Water in the knee, and it has a name. Meniscus, effusion, which is really a form of liquid textology, dividing the meat into chunk and gill. Once, there were still unseen places and things, corners of experience which had no name. And so you could walk upon them and meet them solid for the first time and be dubwise and dread and hail them up and bump Locke's head, dread. And my grandmother said that if the flying frog leapt and landed on your face or the soft fold of your arm, that it would stay there, attach itself as if with glue, and you would have to iron or steam steel heat impress upon the frog back skin till it stick to the stainless heat until it release and peel off. We returned from country visits, from visiting kin or churches hid in bush, to find flying frogs perched in corners of the house, trapped in their silence of peace. I never saw their leap, but I seen what hurricanes could do to islands. I seen it on TV, and it had a name. Negro Palatimus, Hylidae, Rhacophorus, fringe-limbed or marvelous, Ecneomylea, polypodates in the calabash tree. My cousin Alvin and the hillside where bananas are grown from seed. This place has a dance, and it has a name. Even vinegar has a seed. We were wild children. We had names with which we moved through space like blades. Okay. So, yes, the Cora. This is a piece that started off being inspired by a sculpture by Giacometti called Woman with Her Throat Cut. And if you haven't seen it, it's good to see it in the flesh. It's very powerful. You know, some sculpture takes your breath away, like scares you. This is one of those. Woman with Her Throat Cut. I mean, you could Google it and see it on Google, but it's not the same. You got to go to New York, go to the Museum of Modern Art and see it there. The Cora. We moved through the din and dank covered market. Warped African vinyl with dusty grooves and flawless rooms of sacrilege. Nothing there was worth returning with. In the dirt lay fragments of memory, broken instruments of ancient wood, a Cora, in the dust like Giacometti. But not twisted, but black, but not iron, and yet a complex science of sound within the wound of it. The strings which stretched taut across the bridge, like cryptic ribs, there were knots and levers, and when the instrument inhaled, its bowl expanded. Unpolished bare wood, an animal smell, dead yet still breathing. Above us, the dark hills were built from bone and rock. Each crevice hid a home folded flat by day. We had walked through the desert. Show me a stairway which has no balustrade, like steps up the neck of a sphinx, where the edge seemed high and grinning into a curious death, but not secret, but black, but not twisted, yet blacker. We had taken a country drive in a leatherette heat, deep east of the island, along a squatter's path, to a harbor of millet and vine. Blue, yellow, bright, on stilts and under herbal dirt, fetish scents, secrets kept. Memory ghost of my mother, memory ghost of my father, leaning against the pillar post like it was a gleaming Ford Falcon. His grin alone, I know, could pump energy and irrigate the whole region. So we kept on. Dark and deep, and the boats circling in the bay. Wronged around the cliffside, so ruggedly steep, took it down among the birds, grinning at the curve from down, boom, and the motion twist. Something shook and bent the air like an earthquake. Some pop a clap a thunder in the moaning room, in the narrow valley of the Instamatic now. Street where we were walking, tilting our mask, eardrums we cupped airs, walking onto the city of mist and distance by breath. We measured time by distance. country marshland, in that fair, in that there far field, the air where this powerful machine was making it lilt and linger, then plunge perpendicular into the soft bucolic soul of earth, on impact exploding. A wow, look at that, look at that. Close enough. So we saw the passengers, timorous and dank. A moment before sinking, first we thought they were dead, the way they hung their heads, but they were sitting in a church, in a hall, in Senate, in houses of parliament, in community centers, in cinemas beside abattoirs, in universities of dust, in libraries my father built, in tents where tables are set for exorcisms, in estival festivals, in the hills of Montpellier, in Never Dirty and Movar, in endless narcissistic prayer halls, in diverse arrondissements, in wild Indian rivers, in civic auditoriums, in ice factories, in rooms where we made carnival costumes, in rain-lit rooms, in houses of smoke from tall tower blocks that were burning, where they were strapped to their seats but did not scream, when cut but did not moan. Thank you. Yeah, okay. I think I'll just read, just a couple more pieces. I want to finish off with something from Sonnets for Albert, but all of these poems that I've been reading so far are newer poems. Well, not new, actually. They're really old. It takes me a long time to write poems. Sometimes, sometimes it's really quick. You know what it's like? You got a poem, like, the universe just says, oh man, I feel sorry for you. Have a poem. You've been working at this for so long, just have a poem. And it gives you this amazing thing straight off. But sometimes the editing process for me takes years and years, and I love it. I mean, for me, the editing is the most fun part of writing. So yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm writing this series. These poems are from a new collection that's coming out next year. It's a new and selected works, coming out with Bloomsbury sometime in autumn. So I've been writing, and there's a series of poems in here called Wire. And this is, I'm going to read a couple of them. They're pretty short. Wire, God of Wallerfield. Some novelist of trees, barbed like afro-headed wire, lingering, torn wire god, who ran away from the orphanage, from iron bridge rust red hid beneath a hollow stream, must be river fish, razor grass, Wallerfield, weed. Bore brutal fruit, truth in earth too dry to give life, brittle green, gorva, trees, their velvet grain, Caribbean Gothic, Catholic sin, to sleep in, sin thick as shade as the hog plum tree, peep the salt lick, spinning in barren land between the highway and the blue Valencia River. Wire, head. My grandfather won't let me kiss him on the lips. He grins like Titsy Fly bite him in both eyes, pulls and rears his growl. He says, I got 600 man to pay Tony. Where I getting that money from? Then he up and bump rugged across the dust. When he leaves, I cut my left hand off at the wrist and put it in the fridge. My man told me, not the freezer, blood clot and corpuscle. Top of the fridge was where my tape deck sat in 1982, waiting to catch Casey Kasem with the red button. In the same shed, the old man kept his chisels and his hacksaw blades. I checked the minute hand. Later, they were cold. My fingers curled. I massaged the palm and knew it would be better stitched. My mouth didn't shut right. Doctor said he'd have to operate, fix my head, rebuild my gum by gum in plastic rooms with fiber optics, enamel, and after there was a knot of surgical wire on the left side back of my skull. Now, every time I open my mouth too wide, it pulls from the back of my throat. I worry that the cable might burst, but it was strong. I seen it done before. They use the same string for everything. Thank you. And I'm going to finish with a poem from Sonnets from Albert, which is in many ways the poem that started off this whole collection thing about my dad. And it's one of the only poems that he doesn't actually appear in, which is good. So yeah, many years ago, I was at a conference in Washington at Howard University, and it was a conference on Black British aesthetics. And after the conference, we were, I mean, it talks about it in the poem, but we were tired. We were these academics and writers and stuff, and we were tired hearing these $10 words, man. What Hemingway calls $10 words. All these big words, lectures and stuff. We're just tired of that. So we stayed up all night and hung out. And then the next morning we drove around Washington. And this is the poem that came out of it. Breakfast in D.C. That night, after the conference in D.C., we broke free of post-colonial tautology to gather in the small room of the writer in residence. We were young scholars, poets, novelists, a journalist. We drank white wine warm and nodded to neo-soul. I saw them recoil from the British resident when, in the marrow dark of 3 a.m., he rightly said that there was nothing like the sweet kick of crack cocaine. At dawn, we drove out in the doctoral candidate's car. We saw the Doric pillars of the Lincoln Memorial glowing in the unclear distance, then the white gasp of the monument. We ordered pancakes and blueberries at Pete's on 2nd Street and shared our commonalities. And what we shared, besides our blackness, was that in our childhoods, our fathers had all been absent. Thanks for listening, folks.